You are listening to N.A.M.E Broadcast Radio, serving top professionals from all over the globe, with our international host, Mr. Steve Barron.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the show on N.A.M.E Broadcast Radio. I do have a special guest I want to introduce, and when I say special, I think by the time we're done speaking to him, you'll know. But before I do, let me just give you a little insight about him. He runs the Victory Chapel out of the state of Pennsylvania, does religious, spiritual services, gospel training, Assembly of God, ordained Christian assembly. Really done a lot of work to help a lot of people who really have been in need. I think I'm going to bring him on and let him explain it because nobody does it better than him. Our guest here this afternoon is Robert P. Pollick. Robert, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Steve, and I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to speak to your audience. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay. Well, listen, the pleasure's all ours. Trust me, you've explained to me some of the work that you've done, and I feel that this is a very, very important message that you have at this. So what I want to do is, before we get into some of the specifics on what you do, and there are a lot, let me just ask you, if I dial the clock back, where in your life did you really feel that your life was really to be of service of God?
Well, I have to go back in time on that one, Steve, too. I was 19 years of age. I was on my way home from work.
Mm-hmm.
And on my way home, I went through an alley to take a shortcut walking. And as I walked through this alley, there was this elderly man and a young fella. And the elderly man says, "He punched me. He wants to steal my money." Well, I said, and then this young guy says, "Should I hit him again?" I said, "You better not." I went home right after that, and the younger guy ran away, and I went home after that, and I just felt horrible. I said, "What is going on here?" And I said, "Lord," I went up into the attic. I said, "If you are real, before I leave this place, I want to know, and if I don't know this, if nothing happens," I said, "then I'll know that this is it. This is it." And so I was up in the attic, and I was crying and praying and asking God to make himself real. And at that moment, something happened to me. I was there, I don't know how long, but something happened. I was really serious. I felt a big load go right off of me, heavy load. And then I felt something come into me. It was like peace and joy. And I said, wow, I never felt like this before. And I went to the window, picked the window up and looked out. And I looked and I said, I feel so good. All of a sudden the window come crashing down on my hands. If it had happened any other time but now, I would have got upset. I said, "Devil, you're not going to stop me now." And I just picked the window back up and I said, "Praise the Lord, no matter what happens." And that was the beginning of my life to serving the Lord.
Wow. How many years ago was that, Robert?
Well, I was 77 in July. So I was 19 years of age at that time. And from that moment on, I have felt God's presence with me I think I lived a life of miracles. Yeah. And that was about 50-some years ago.
Well, listen, you had alluded to a moment ago at that moment where you felt like there was a transition. In your own words, saying the devil's not going to stop me now. It appears for the next 50 years after that moment hasn't stopped you either. God bless you on that. Tell me, what you do here. I know you've helped families. You feed thousands of them, homeless. I mean, you've even taken into your care animals. Explain some of that to us.
Well, after that, I went into the ministry. Didn't want to. I didn't ask to go. But I was going to a particular meeting in church, and that's when they talked to me, and they watched me, and they said, "Would you take over church?" And I did, and that was the beginning of it. And then, and I'm going to go ahead in time, I was in a meeting, and I had so many things happened before this, but this one particular moment when I started with sheltering people, I was in a gospel meeting. We were holding a Bible study, coldest day of the year. A young fellow by the name of Jeffrey walked in, and he was just frozen. And he says, and he was crying. I said, what's wrong? And I asked him his name, and he told me, and I said, what's going on? And he said, I am so cold, can you help me? And I said, Jeffrey, I said, well, if I could, I will. I said, well, what happened? And he told me, he said, I went all over the place. I went to churches. I went to every church in the city here, and no one could help me. I said, I needed a place to stay. No one could help me to find a place. He said, I ended up with a little New Testament and a $5 bill. Somebody gave me $5. But they all said, we're praying for you. I said, Jeff, I said, right now, I said, in the spur of the moment, I'm telling you this. You could live right here in this church until we find a place for you. And that was the first time I put somebody up. And I kept them in the church for a few months. And then Jeffrey went out and he got a job with UPS, got married.
Wow.
And he's doing great, real great. But because I did that, we ended up having a shelter. Many people left me after that. When I did that, many people said, you can't keep people in the church. It's a nice building and all that.
Wait, hold on. You're saying that members of your so-called, I guess I'll call it congregation, left the church because they felt that you were using the church for reasons that it wasn't supposed to be used?
Oh, yes. They said I was using it, and they said this is a sanctuary, and you're letting people sleep in here, and, well...
Robert, you're doing God's work. I mean, there are those out there who maybe have never witnessed or don't believe, or both, in the potential of a miracle, but I bet this fella who you mentioned and put up in that church, who had $5, freezing to death, nothing to eat, nowhere to live, and really there was no hope in his life. I bet you he believes in miracles.
Oh, he does, and then he got married, and they moved away, and he brought his wife and his children back so we could see him, and I said, you know what, it's so worth it. And I thought so many churches are so worried about building up a building to look good on the outside. Yeah. So what's going on the inside? And, anyhow, when the people, even some of my people didn't agree with me, but I had to do what I felt God wanted me to do. And that was the beginning of having a shelter. And after that, we had the biggest shelter in the county that I lived in. We had the biggest shelter, and probably one of the biggest in the state, probably at that time. I'm not saying they're any bigger now. But we took in people off the streets. It was mostly women and children that we took in. And we were feeding a couple of hundred people sometimes a day. And, we started with absolutely nothing. I didn't know if we could make it, but we did make it. And at any rate, so what happened after that is that a United States Senator donated $225,000 to a shelter, to the shelter that was doing it, and of course it was our shelter. And what happened is immediately the politicians in our location got highly upset. And their determination was they wanted that money. They thought I went after it. I didn't even know it was coming. Well, their goal was to get that $225,000. And so they did everything, went to court, and did everything to try to get me out of there. And even though I could win, I was losing financially. So one day, the doc came to the church. I was in the church, and people come in the church and said, you have 30 minutes to vacate. I said, what? And they said, you have 30 minutes to vacate. At that time, I had 21 women and children in the living there. And so they came with vans and took everybody out. It looked like a drug bust, and I couldn't believe what was going on. And then after they took everyone out, they asked me if I could help them find a location for the women and children. They didn't know what to do with them. I said, you know what, I will. because it wasn't their fault. It wasn't the women and children's fault. And I did. I helped them find a place to place all of them. But what they had to do is they had to say Victory Chapel is no longer in existence. When they did that, and they went for the money, and they did get the money because I had no place else. I had to go look for a place. But I said, you did not close Victory Chapel down. You closed this building down, but we exist, and we're going on. And I have gone on until this day.
Well, let me tell you something. There's no question in my mind. And listen, there are a lot of people out there who may say, well, you know, I'm not so sure. I don't believe in miracles. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in the Lord. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. I'm not sure. But I can tell you one thing that I can state. I certainly have no doubt that you, Robert Pollick, believe. And that fellow who came off the streets with $5 and not a hope and barely a prayer, who was offered your church as a sanctuary, in his mind, I have no question he believes. You're doing God's work. I think you've done a terrific job. Again, our guest here today is Robert Pollick. He is the proprietor and minister here at Victory Chapel out of Arona, Pennsylvania. Listen, reach out to him. He's doing God's work. He operates a very small operation. Really, if you can help in any capacity, you help him to help people. And I think that's really a responsibility that us as a people have. He can be reached at robertpollick1@gmail.com, Robert Pollick on Facebook, and also directly to the Victory Chapel, area code 724-217-2333. Listen, I'm going to give you the last word. Give us something to hope for.
Okay. Right now, what I'm doing at this present time is we are still going on. I have a building that I use. I took over an old building that was a wood shop, and we cleaned it up, and we're using it for a gospel meeting. It's not qualified, capable to do many of the things we did in the past. But I'm trying to purchase a property that people that lived there were having to give it up. They didn't have enough money. And so I'm trying to purchase that because on that property they permitted us to build a garden and do things to help feed people. And this is what I do. We feed people 5 days a week. And so I'm trying to purchase this property, and I'm praying about it very strongly. And we can use this to feed the people and to even put something on there to be able to once again put a place for people to stay in. Anyhow, that's my goal right now.
Good.
We're not quitting. We're still doing it. We feed them 5 days a week, and I need a little more place better than this.
Absolutely.
So that's what my goal is right now. I'm trying to purchase this little piece of property, and by God's grace, I appreciate you giving me this chance, and that's my goal. And if anybody feels that they want to be a part of it, Lord, your name will be in heaven too, that you have done something for God's work. And you know what? Everyone wants to go overseas when we need it right here in America.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it right here in America under the people. People could see what we're doing, you know.
No question.
It's not something that you have to say, maybe, but no, it's done. This is being done every day.
Listen, you speak with passion, you speak with conviction. I truly believe, in my heart of hearts, you speak at times with a higher authority. Again, our guest has been Robert Pollick here at the Victory Chapel. If you want to do something, you want to help him help people, reach out, help him donate to the Victory Chapel. That's in Arona, Pennsylvania. He can be reached directly at robertpollick1@gmail.com. Reach out to him on Facebook, that's Robert Pollick, or directly, that's to the Victory Chapel, is 724-217-2333. Listen, it's been my honor and my privilege of having you on. Robert, I commend you on the work that you've done and you continue to do. Some people choose to live a life of limelight and self-gratification, and you have really served as a role model for those to understand that maybe there is a higher purpose than self-ingratiation. But I want to thank you for being with us, Robert. It's been my pleasure, and we will be speaking soon.
Thank you, Steve. God bless you, too.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye.